Welcome to the John Orsini podcast. Take a big breath in. Here we go. Maybe this is you. You're stressed or you're overwhelmed in your life or at work, and you either read somewhere or someone suggests to you, hey, you should really try meditating. And so you sit down somewhere and you try to make a quiet environment, and you sit down, and before you know it, all these thoughts start flooding in, and you get all overwhelmed and confused, and not even sure what you're doing there anymore. And then you just say, you know what? I suck at meditation, and you throw in the towel. That is perfectly normal. There is nothing wrong with you. And here's what's happening. You're doing it wrong. You've either been told something that's not exactly helpful, or you get overwhelmed by the seemingly endless amounts of ways to meditate. And so you're trying to sit down and you're like flip-flopping between them. So let me strip it way down. Let me simplify it and make it effective and useful for you in your life. So I'm going to highlight a few main points, and then I'm going to guide you through a very simple, very effective, very short meditation at the end of this. Why would you meditate? Why even bother? It's not to be calm. It's not to be less stressed. Yes, those are byproducts, but that is not the goal. If they are the goal, you'll just end up frustrated and you'll end up giving up. Here is why we meditate. Because the quality of our awareness is the quality of our life, our ability to connect to ourselves and the world around us. And meditation is the simplest, best way to do that, to develop that skill, if you want to call it that. And the thing is, it's not a chore. If it feels like one, you're doing it wrong, right? It's not an effortful thing. If it feels like that, you're doing it wrong. It's a playful exploration. And ultimately, meditation is not a thing that we do. It's a state of consciousness that we can invite, that we can land in, that we can choose at really any time, and it deepens and enriches our experience of life. Meditation, one way to think of it is choosing one point of focus, and when your mind drifts, you come back to that point of focus. Now, notice I say when your mind drifts, not if, because your mind is going to drift. That's what a human brain does. Now, let me give you an example. So you're sitting in your living room and you choose your point of focus is the feeling of your breath, right? Classic meditation. So you sit in your living room, you start to notice the feeling of your breath. You're like, oh, okay, this is nice. This feels good. And then the neighbor's dog barks. And so you get, I'll say in quotes, distracted, right? So now let me offer this for you. The dog barking is an alert of some kind. And there is a part of your brain that is always scanning your environment for threats, because your brain is trying to keep you safe. There's some level, some part of your brain that is always trying to make sure you're safe. So when you're sitting there noticing your breath and a dog barks, you may think of it as a distraction. It may take you down a whole line of discursive, distracting, I say in quotes, thought. But at the core of it is, the reason you got quote unquote distracted is because your brain heard a bark, and some part of your brain goes, wait, am I safe? Should I notice what's going on here? Is there a tiger in the bushes? Right? That's what your brain's doing. So you may feel like you're distracted. You may feel like you screwed up, but not at all. And now, so what can happen there is the dog barks. You hear the bark. You say, gosh, that dog, what a distraction. This is so annoying. And then you say, wait, why is the dog outside? Is he alone? Should I go play with him? I love dogs. I miss my dog. I had a dog when I was a kid. Oh, childhood, right? And we go down this whole crazy rabbit hole of thoughts. And then whenever we do catch it, a lot of times there's judgment around that. Self-judgment, self-criticism. Oh, I screwed up. Oh, I got distracted. And we're kind of like slapping ourselves on the wrist. None of that is helpful. None of it is necessary, right? The reason we got distracted, our brain is looking out for us. And now the most important piece of this, choose one point of focus. When you drift, you come back, is that it's not about staying on the point of focus. It's about coming back. The practice is not about staying. It's about coming back. And you could think of this like reps in the gym. It's the movement of the weight. It's the lifting of the weight that's making you stronger. So it's not about staying on your point of focus. It's about coming back. Every time you come back, you strengthen your connection to awareness. And every time you practice strengthening your connection to awareness, you're able to do it more and more in your daily life, which makes your life better. It makes your life more fun. It makes your life more delicious. Like, think about food. When you're eating food, bring your awareness to how it tastes. delicious. When you're with your partner, that connection, that time in a conversation, right? You get the idea. This is why we do it. It's a playful exploration. It's not a chore, right? When it drifts, you come back. Okay, so that's the first thing. The next thing is meditation is not about controlling your thoughts. I'm going to say that again. Meditation is not about controlling your thoughts. It's about exploring the space where your thoughts don't control you. I'm going to say it one more time. Meditation is not about controlling your thoughts. It's about exploring the space where your thoughts don't control you. And this, as you might imagine, is a massive difference because we can't just assume that we can control our thoughts. Can we to some degree? Maybe, maybe not, but it is unrealistic to think we're going to sit down and suddenly control our thoughts. But we can explore the space where our thoughts don't control us, where we essentially can watch our thoughts swim by like we're watching fish in an aquarium, just swimming right by, just notice them, right? So now this leads me into the last point. Meditation is consciousness without thought. And now, of course, I'm the first one to be like, well, what do you mean? Like, we're going to have thoughts. We are. So I've heard this before. Meditation is consciousness without thought. And I love the point, and that's what I'm going to flesh out here, but I don't fully subscribe to the idea that without thought, as if we're not going to have thoughts. We're going to have thoughts. It's completely normal. So what I mean by this is consciousness without thought. So tying to this last point, we're in a place where our thoughts don't control us, right? We're just observing them. So in the same way, when we experience meditation, and when we experience it in the most enjoyable, exciting, interesting, compelling way, we're in what is sometimes called the seat of the observer. So we're noticing, right? So we can have all this chatter, we can have all these thoughts, but when we are in a state of consciousness where we are simply observing those thoughts, those sounds, those quote unquote distractions, when we are simply in the seat of the observer, just noticing, the question becomes, am I these chattering thoughts? Or am I the one who's watching? You are the one who is watching. And that's a topic for a whole other video podcast discussion, right? Consciousness without thought. So landing in that seat of the observer and simply noticing. And the last thing I'll say here is Swami Kripalu has this beautiful quote, the highest spiritual practice is self-observation without judgment. And I'll expand that to say observation without judgment, period. That is, to me, this sense of consciousness without thought, that even if there are thoughts, we're not getting swept up in them. So we're just noticing from that observer position, the seat of the observer. So observation without judgment. If you take that into a meditation, it's a whole different ballgame, because whether you're having a chattering mind or not, doesn't matter. Just notice it. Of course, it feels like it matters. But what I will say, after 20 years of meditation at this point personally, what I would imagine any meditator will tell you, sure, there's a development process that happens. Absolutely. But some days your mind is going to chatter more than others, no matter how long you've been doing it. So it's not a question of trying to control it. It's landing in that seat of the observer. And that's what gets stronger, your ability to simply observe. And by doing that, things change. By doing that, you tend to end up calmer. You tend to end up less stressed. But if you make that the goal and then you're not calm or you are stressed, you're just fighting yourself the whole time and you're creating a friction that actually isn't fundamentally there until you layer on the self-criticism, the self-judgment, the idea that I suck at meditation, whatever the thought is, right? Because you don't, especially when you take this point of view of I'm going to sit and observe, right? So, okay. Wherever you are, you can do this eyes open or eyes closed. So even if you are listening to this while you're driving in your car, keep your eyes open, obviously. But if you're in a safe space and you can allow the eyes to close, you can do that too. This is all we're going to do. Start to listen. Notice what you hear. If you're in your car, you may hear the hum of your car tires on the road. if you're inside your office, you may hear the buzz of the fluorescent lights. You may hear someone cough in the other side of the room. You may hear birds or the neighbor's dog outside, right? You may hear the hiss of the heater or the sound of an air conditioner. Just notice what you hear. And whatever sounds you're hearing, see if you can let go of the concept of a right sound or a wrong sound. There's just sound. And even if that sound is a loud truck or a blaring siren, something that you would normally consider unpleasant, see if you could just notice the sound as the meditation. And if thoughts come in, that's perfectly fine. Just come back to whatever you're hearing. Without the need to control or fix anything. Just to listen. And in the same way that meditation is not about controlling your thoughts, it's about exploring the space where your thoughts don't control you. Allow this sound meditation to be a space where you don't have to control the sounds. Just explore the space where the sounds don't control you. You can sit in that seat of the observer, notice what you hear without any judgment, without any sense of preference. Without any need to control or change anything. Just a playful exploration of noticing. Thanks for listening to the John Orsini podcast. You can watch my YouTube videos at Breathwork with John, Jon, Instagram at John Orsini, and johnorsini.com for free discovery calls, Zoom sessions. Reach out anytime. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you in the next one.